This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening. I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. The economic state of Grand Bahama and the way forward was the topic of discussion today during the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce's monthly meeting at the Pelican Bay Resort. Senior partner at Depuch and Turnquest, Terrence Gates, says, despite the depressed state of Freeport's economic affairs, he's excited about the prospects for 2015. He commended the government for appointing a committee to review portions of the Hawksbill Creek Agreement set to expire in August.
I believe the appointment of this Blue Ribbon Committee bespeaks the belief held by the Prime Minister and growing members of the government that Freeport needs to be given the ability to grow and prosper, and they understand what needs to happen to accomplish this goal.
He says when the government extended tax exemptions in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement in 1993, one of the key conditions was for the Grand Bahama Port Authority and DEVCO to establish an organization to promote Grand Bahama internationally, which he says has not happened.
I believe and pray that the government realizes that Freeport Grand Bahama represents the one island of the Bahamas where the next 10,000 jobs can be created. You can do as much as you want in Abaco and Exuma, but you're only going to create about 1,500 jobs in each place. We need another 10,000 jobs in this country to survive and to prosper, and the only place it can happen is Grand Bahama.
On the issue of real property tax, Gabe says he has changed his position that this tax should not be extended.
In 2012, I argued that though for 40 years Freeport had enjoyed an exclusive exemption from real property tax, which tax was imposed in the rest of the country, the fact of this exemption had not benefited Freeport, especially these past 20 years, because of course, Freeport had not promoted the exemption or itself as other areas of the Bahamas, Nassau, Paradise Island, Harbor Island, Abaco and Exuma, all of which pay real property tax, are outstripping Freeport and are prospering.
According to Gabe, free enterprise has failed the city of Freeport. He says he agrees with the late honorary chairman of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Sir Jack Hayward, who said the present ownership families of the port need to go.
In 2012, I expressed from my readings of the Hawksbill Creek Agreement and my knowledge of Freeport, the ownership of the Port Authority and its assets, to include DEVCO, should be in the hands of a developer. It was not meant to be a fiefdom to be handed down to new generations. Our experience of the last 12 years is proof of this. I believe the government has come to this same conclusion.
Meantime, the Department of Immigration continuing its zero-tolerance approach to illegal immigration. Last week, officers carried out an exercise on the island of Abaco, where just under 60 people were taken into custody. Minister of Immigration Fred Mitchell says Eleuthera and Exuma are next on the radar. And when it comes to Grand Bahama, he says the concerns are a bit different.
There's an ongoing effort here in Grand Bahama, and if people have information about various things in Grand Bahama, the main thing I see in Grand Bahama is that this island is being used as a staging point for smuggling into the United States and arresting from time to time people of all sorts of nationalities who you would not normally expect to be here in Grand Bahama, just setting out to the United States. So that we do have on our radar.
Minister Mitchell says penalties have been increased for persons found in the illegal smuggling business to 5 years and $10,000. The Immigration Department is also looking to increase its force with the introduction of Immigration Reserve, where ordinary civilians will be able to serve. But in the meantime, Mitchell says everyone must buy into the vision to ensure that the problem doesn't get out of hand.
It's eternal vigilance. This is a problem that has to be managed. The next sort of testing, I think, will be if the economy really picks up, because that we know that when the economy picks up, there's a shortage of manpower in the country, and then you have the demands, and people want to take shortcuts. In fact, that's the reason the situation has developed in Abaco, is during the times when the economy was doing very well, people just had a free-for-all, and we're hoping to put a stop to that. So it's the community has to buy into it. The Department of Immigration, whoever manages it in the future, has to buy into it.
The end of March will signal the final mission of the Constitutional Commission. For several months now, officials have been traversing the various islands, holding town meetings to discuss the proposed amendments to the Constitution. While on Grand Bahama, officials held a session for a special group of young people. Joan Davis-Roll reports.
It was a session of a different kind. You can call it Gender Equality 201. As students from various tertiary level institutions here on Grand Bahama turned up at the Christ the King Auditorium for a special class held at the Foster Piscina Center. Students from the Shipmate Limited, College of the Bahamas, Tabernacle Baptist Academy, youth parliamentarians, Fresh Start, and the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institution all participating in the special educational session. Assistant Manager at BTVI, Veronica Colley, says the event provided an excellent learning experience.
Our young people, in fact, I think our nation, need to know more about what's going on when it comes to the law. We have students from a computer program, we have students from our entrepreneurial workforce where they are learning about writing business plans and all that. We have students from the shipyard, because our apprentices are also here from Grand Bahama Shipyard. So we feel that what we plan to do, in fact, is have them incorporate what they get here into some of the exercises that we have at BTVI. So it's a learning process, basically.
Participants like Kenneth Miller says the forum is timely, as it provided a significant insight as future leaders.
I just find that this Constitutional Commission session is what young people need. Because one of the things that I stated in the House of Assembly earlier is until the men arise back in the homes and in the society as leaders, debates like these would not have to be done so. So it's until the family structure is restored and homes return back to the holiness in Christ that these things have become in order, so to speak.
Co-chairperson of the commission, retired Justice Ruby Nottage, says this special session comes as the Constitutional Commission's tour of duty ends on a high note and it winds down here throughout the country.
We're touching the young Bahamian, who is the young Bahamian voter. Most of these students are between the ages of 17 and 18. They're the voters, not of the future, but of now. And they are the leaders of now. They all want to know about the Constitution, and I think that's exciting because so many of them have never really had the opportunity to engage in a public forum about any issue on the Constitution.
Joan Davis-Roll, ZNS Network News.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources spearheading a two-day agribusiness expo on Grand Bahama. It is an initiative to encourage more Bahamians to get into farming. Students at the Jack Hayward High School have answered the call. The school recently had the opportunity to show off the produce grown right on campus. Megan Shepard fills us in.
Students of Jack Hayward High School celebrating Agricultural Awareness Day with a special guest speaker, Engineer Leon Cooper, sharing some interesting facts with the school body. That the country imports roughly $1 billion worth of food into the country annually, and not to mention that in the event of a disaster and planes are grounded and ships unable to come in, it will take 3 days or less for the food supply to run out.
All of the foods, all of the cereals, all of the fruit, all of the veggies, all of the this, all of the that, it comes from somewhere else, somewhere outside of the country, almost 90%. And as a nation, we import roughly about $1 billion worth of food into the country every year. That's with a B. That's a lot.
Cooper says it is now up to this generation to do their part in fixing the many issues surrounding the country's agriculture industry. He says there are many avenues to get involved that are not the traditional farming careers.
How do we ensure that the farmer in Inagua who is producing product A is tied into the breadbasket wants and needs of somebody in Bimini, and vice versa, the person who's growing tomatoes in Auckland is tied to the breadbasket and tummy of the person who needs those things in Eleuthera. It's the kind of logistic and sophistication and science that you people, who I'm expecting, who are my future, I'm expecting you begin to start to solve some of these problems or work with some of the leaders to begin to put some of these problems under our feet once and for all.
He also issued a personal challenge to the students.
If only a small plant, if only a small pepper, if only a flower. Why? Well, if nothing else, it begins to give you a sense of what goes into making something grow, what goes into making something go from a seed to a young plant to something you can eventually enjoy and eat.
Agriculture Awareness Day continued with an impressive display of vegetables grown by the students that were available for sale to the public. Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Thanks, Megan. Stay with us. There's more news after this.